Welcome back to another episode of Bon Voyage Besties, your go-to podcast for all things travel, friendship, and a little bit of humor along the way. And today's episode is a special one. I know for myself, this is one of the places that I've been wanting to go to. So we're super excited to welcome Colleen, an English traveler living in France who has been exploring Spain since the 1980s. After undergoing cancer treatment, Colleen took on the life-changing journey of walking the Camino de Santiago. Since then, she's walked thousands of kilometers and now shares her experiences, advice, and inspiration through her blog, Then We Walked. In today's conversation, we're diving deep into the Camino de Santiago, what it's really like, who it's for, how challenging it can be, of course, how much does it cost, and where to even begin if you've been thinking about doing it yourself. So many people dream about walking the Camino, but feel overwhelmed or unsure if they can actually do it. And Colleen is here to help break down those barriers and make it feel possible. So today we'll be chatting about Spain most tourists never get to see beyond the costas, beaches, and resorts, uncovering some lesser known places that truly captured the heart of the country. So grab your backpack besties, lace up those hiking boots, and get ready for an inspiring and adventure-filled episode. Welcome, Colleen, to the show.
I've always wanted to walk the Camino de Santiago, so I know I'm especially excited for this episode. Thank you so much for being here.
Cool. Well, let's hope I don't put you off.
We're always ready and up for a challenge. I know for myself personally, it's crazy because last year I was looking into doing it because I wanted to do kind of like a solo trip in April of this year. And like you said, it could be a little bit overwhelming when you're researching it. And then I'm like, can I really do this by myself as a solo female traveler? And I kind of got into my head a little bit and it kind of a little bit turned off. So I'm super excited for this episode because I feel like this is an adventure that I want to take. So Colleen, what inspired you to walk the Camino de Santiago after your cancer treatment?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever felt totally inspired. I don't know. I learned about the Camino when we moved to France in 2007. That was before Facebook and there were online forums, and we made friends with people on this French forum. And two of the ladies there walked the Camino. That was in 2007. I liked a walk, but, just go for a few hours. And I was reading it and I was thinking, that sounds really cool. I'd never heard of the Camino, didn't know what it was. And then I looked up and thought, oh, they really are going to walk 800 kilometers across Spain. It's like, okay, that is just crazy. And I just parked that and thought, yeah, that's never going to happen. I am not up for that. And then a few years later, I was diagnosed with cancer. A couple of years after that, when you're sort of feeling like you're back to your old self and that life goes on, we went on holiday into northern Spain. There's a chef in England who's a bit of a national treasure. He's called Rick Stein, and he went in a camper van around northern Spain one year for a TV series. And so my husband was like, let's do what Rick Stein did and go along northern Spain, which nobody really visits. They go to the southern coast, but the northern coast is stunningly beautiful. So off we set in our camper van, and I'm seeing people walking along highways. Spain's beautiful. Why are people walking with rucksacks in a line beside
What's happening here?
Why are people walking on the highway?
Why would you do that? And so he said, oh, they're pilgrims, like our two friends. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And the more we traveled, the more I thought, oh, I want to do this. And we were stopping at some of the major places along the route. And we had planned to go to Santiago. And I just decided, wasn't sure that I wanted to drive there. I was going to hold off. And instead we went to the coast. I sat on the beach and I put my hand on a shell and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And, I was not the sort of person that would embark on anything like this. So I was 51 at the time and I was very overweight. 2 years outside of the cancer diagnosis and the treatment and everything. Even my doctor wasn't happy about me going. I'd never walked with a rucksack. I hate cows. I am afraid of dogs. I don't like buzzy things. I'm a princess. I don't like anything that's ski, and people were like, yeah, you're never, ever going to do this. And yeah, I just knew that I was.
I love
Love
it. Just
that.
listening to your story, I literally got chills because
Me
it just sounds so like
too.
inspiring how like
Me too.
you really pushed yourself completely outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I was just thinking yesterday, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've put on like a lot of weight this year. I really want to do like a walk. I'm a bit of a princess myself. I always have my nails done, and I'm like, this is speaking to me right now. Like, I'm feeling the confidence bubble up inside me listening to your story.
Think that it's, that I'm sure you must probably get into it later, but there's this whole debate about what is a real pilgrim. And if you go on to many Facebook groups or forums, you'll have people saying, oh, you've got to carry your bag and you've got to stay in a bunk bed and you have to conform and be this certain kind of person. And I don't believe that's true. I think for somebody getting on a plane and leaving their home country and flying halfway around the world on their own is a massive, massive thing for them to do. That in itself is a pilgrimage, that journey. And then to think, oh my God, I'm going to have to shower in an albergue and not blow dry my hair for a month and not wear makeup or not have my nails done. That for some people is such really scary proposition. You think, I can't, I don't have the confidence not to be behind who the person I am is. And for me, that is the pilgrimage part of it. That's the bit that where you're stripping away things that you felt were impossible. Not can you sleep in a bunk bed or carry a rucksack. I think that is superficial to that. So I think for a lot of people, the idea of not being able to get a blow dryer it's a real thing. It's such a real thing. And that's part of the process, I feel.
And I feel like you bring up a really valid point too. I think a lot of times it's more mental than physical. I had a similar experience. I got invited to do a press trip in Iceland and it was like a hiking trail. We were going to spend 3 days out in the woods. It was like only 5 minutes of hot shower. And I was like, this is completely outside of my comfort zone, but I feel like it would be like a great, adventure. And I remember texting my daughter while she's in university. I'm like, Sam, would you be down? And she was like, sure, why not? It's only 3 days. And I was like, all right. So we like got all of our gear. And as we were leading to the trip, I kept on thinking to myself, like, what the hell did I just sign myself up for? Like, am I really going to be sleeping in a hut? I had like a sleeping bag. I'm not a hiker.
I
I'm
still
not.
can't picture it, Rosa. Like, I'm so impressed that you did it, but like picturing it, like I'm still like amazed by that trip because just like picturing you doing that, I'm like, oh my God, she is so brave.
Yeah, I think about it now and I was like, you know what? I actually did that. But getting past the mental roadblocks was for me, I think, the biggest challenge. And granted, too, it was a little, physically challenging at times as well. But I think the mental aspect was the most challenging because I honestly was like, telling my daughter, even up until the day, I was like, Sam, are you sure you can still back out? Like hoping she would chicken out, but we did not and we survived.
I would say the one statement I would take away from that is when you said, my daughter who is at university. And I'm thinking, whoa, you look about 24.
Thank you. Thank you. I get that often.
She does. She's so pretty.
I guess it's all my crazy adventures and adrenaline. They keep me young.
Yeah, travel keeps us young. But like, I really love what you're saying, Colleen. Even just like the idea of like solo travel being the pilgrimage in and of itself, I was thinking about like, yeah, like that's true. Like, I've had to mentally prepare so much to fly to France, to fly to Scotland, to fly to Japan. That was like a real big trip for me to do solo because I'm scared to fly. I talk about it a lot on this show. And even just that in and of itself is a pilgrimage. And like I said earlier, the Camino, I've always been intrigued by it. I've always wanted to do it. And I teach high school, so I do have time off in the summer where I could theoretically do the entire thing without taking time off work. So that's really cool. So for someone who's never heard of the Camino before, how would you describe the experience to them?
Yeah, I think it's unique to every person. So everybody's going to get something different. And there are two aspects to it. And again, it depends how you want to walk your Camino. So some people will put on a rucksack and they will walk 800 kilometers and stay in municipal, the most basic hostels or albergues, as they would call them. And they'll deal with the most basic, simple things as they come along. And they'll have the camaraderie and they'll deal with the blisters and they'll figure out what's in their bag. And that's one experience. And people will get a considerable amount from that experience But you also have somebody who maybe is older. Now, my husband comes walking with me a lot, but he says, I want my own bathroom. Reached a point in my life where I want my own bathroom. He'll carry a bag. He will stay in an albergue. It's not that he's averse to it, but he wants his own bathroom. He doesn't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. He wants a different kind of experience. But for him, it's about the history and the gastronomy and the wine and meeting people and seeing a part of Spain that maybe he would never have seen, and walking with people from around the world and sitting down and having a meal and learning something interesting or a different viewpoint. So everybody's Camino is going to be different, the way they tackle it and what they get out of it. And I think it's such a personal thing. And sometimes you don't get it until you get home and you think, yeah, that affected me in this way, or you start yearning to do something else. But I think it's such a personal thing. We come with our own inhibitions and our own expectations and our own hang-ups, and we go away with different points of view.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts about travel. Like, I love what you said about like meeting people on the walk. And I know for me, like, before I take any sort of solo trip, I always have in my head like the amazing food I'm going to have, the cool cocktail bars, maybe some local shopping, the attractions. But really, always what sticks with me at the end of the day are those connections with people, and the community just like really stays in my heart. And I always picture like the Camino being like that, just coming across so many amazing people on the road and during that walk. I think that's like why I want to do it one day, because I love people. I'm very much an extrovert. I could talk to a wall. So I think I would have a lot of fun.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I want to do it so I can just walk this journey by myself and speak to no one.
Camino's different for everyone. I love how Rosa and I have two different mindsets with this, which is great.
You can do both. My son taught me, because he grew up in France. And one of the things I love about the Camino is the French word for friend is copain, which is with whom I break bread. And I think that is such a wonderful definition of friendship, that you'll sit down and have a meal with somebody and share with them what you have. And you do that a lot on the Camino. And it may not be bread that you're sharing. It might be a blister plaster or a different sock or what have you, but you share things that you've got so little with you that you're happy to share it with your village that is walking with you along this road.
And you see a nice size of humanity as well. I know when I did this hiking press trip to Iceland, it was a small, intimate group. I think it was about maybe total like 8 of us, including our guide. And we all came from different walks of life, different ages. You know, my daughter was the youngest. She was 19 at the time, or 20. And then the oldest, I think she was like in her 80s. But you kind of like build this bond, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Like, I have a huge fear of heights. There were some parts of the trail where like some of the women like holding my hand just to get me like across, and you just like build like this bond with people that you've never met before, but it's like so empowering. And to this day, those are the moments that I still remember, is the connection that I made with these wonderful women along this journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think more than anything else, that is what people do take away. And even if you walk a solitary Camino, and that is possible. I've walked sometimes where I haven't seen anybody for a few days, but it is that connection with people that you would never have a chance to talk to. I volunteered in the Pilgrim office last year, and a lot of Americans still say, "Oh, will I be welcome on the Camino?" Without going any further into that. But that's a genuine fear for lots of people. Will they, am I too old? Am I too young? I'm not religious. I'm from XYZ. Will I be welcome? And when everybody gets into their accommodation and the thing that they talk about is blisters, or where they're going to find food, or what time they're going to get up, or is there a bed, or are they hot or cold or sunburnt? And nobody cares about anything else. And I think it's such a leveler. Doesn't matter how expensive your shoes were, you're still going to get blisters if they're not right. And it doesn't matter how big your house is, you're still staying in that bunk bed or in that little room or wherever. And it's such a great leveler that we all have one thing in common, and that bonds people, and nobody judges. And if they do, I think people kind of very quickly latch onto that and give them sort of short shift and think, okay, you're not part of our group. So it is just perfect for meeting people and seeing the goodness in people.
I love that. It feels like a real great equalizer, which I feel like we all need, especially like in times like now. Like, I know as a content creator, sometimes with social media, I'll compare myself to other people. I'll always want like more things or like a bigger apartment or what have you. And I just love that this is a chance where it's like everyone's the same and we're all connected because we have this like pilgrimage that like unifies us. I feel like it's really special.
Yeah, and also I think the whole thing about I'm a content creator, I guess, as well. And there is this kind of anti content creator or anti Instagram thing. And the great thing about walking the Camino is that everybody is in shorts and a t shirt and their hair is messy and we're sweating and we might be red faced and nobody cares. It's this great equalizer. And if you post photographs of yourself looking hot and sweaty or bandaged and blistered feet, people are like, oh yeah, that's part of the Camino, it's wonderful, nobody's judging you for looking like that, and you just don't care in the end. And that is, for a woman's particularly, it's liberating, and I guess for a young woman it's liberating for different reasons than if you're an older woman, but it's still really liberating.
It definitely is because, like Rachel said, at least for us, being in the content creation space, sometimes we kind of feel like we have to keep up with, that Instagrammer that's always posting, like, oh, I went hiking. And then all of a sudden they're like in a fancy, flowy dress. Meanwhile, I'm over here sweaty, my hair's all curled up, and I look a hot mess. And I'm like, even if I wanted to, there's no way I can accomplish that. And granted, a lot of them, are changing when they get to like the peak or whatever the case may be, but it's not genuine and authentic. And I feel that doesn't really resonate with true travelers.
Exactly. And I've got 7 kilos in my rucksack. I'm not pulling out a frilly dress.
Saving that for
Hey,
snacks.
no way. I would need the room. Yeah, I was going to say I would need it for sunscreen because, like, you see me on the camera, I look at the sun and I burn. I get like rosacea, like that, like rucksack's going to be like packed with sunscreen and the proper socks. Like, I remember the first like trip I did that was very much like a nature hiking trip. It was in British Columbia and Alberta out in Canada. And it was that same like camaraderie between people, but I had like the wrong socks. They helped me with the socks. I didn't have a headlamp. They helped me with the headlamp. But what sticks out to me is the one campsite out in British Columbia, there were no showers and none of us could get a shower. Like, you had the beautiful Pacific Ocean and that was like marvelous, but we were all kind of like dirty. Like, I looked like a mess, but we all did. And it was actually like a lot of fun because, like you said, no one cared and it was really refreshing. And then we went to Vancouver and I immediately was like, I gotta get a shower before I go out because I'm like, oh my God, these people are so like chic. I need to get a shower and like fix up. But when we were actually at the campsite, it was so nice that like nobody cared. Like, I had no makeup. Like, I was wearing like the same clothes I wore the day before. And it was like refreshing. I didn't feel like I had to like put on a show, you know?
And I think that says a lot. Doesn't that say a lot about the pressures that we put ourselves under in everyday life, that we find it refreshing that we can wear the same t-shirt for 2 days and not care? And that's so sad that that actually is a genuine thing. We walked once when it was raining a lot and we didn't know if our clothes would dry overnight. So we only washed one outfit. And this is how much you let go. The next morning, he gave the t-shirts a sniff and said, well, it's a good job that we only washed one set because we could put these dirty ones back on.
Yeah, I did the
It's like
sniff
so
test a lot.
liberating.
That's freedom, real freedom there.
Exactly. And it's something that you won't know until you get to experience something like this. I know, like I mentioned in the episode, when I was thinking about doing this, it was going to be more of a solo trip for myself, something that I just personally wanted to do just to kind of prove that I can do it. I know physically, I do not consider myself to be a fit person.
Girl, don't get me started on that. I'm with you.
I have like an issue with like my leg and my knees. So if I'm walking for an extended period of time or going up a hill, like I'm always afraid, especially like in a group setting, that I'm going to be the person holding everyone back. So Colleen, what would you say to people who are worried, like myself, that they're not fit enough to walk the Camino?
Well, walking up a hill, investigate rest steps. I used to try and walk quickly up a hill, keep up with my husband or my walking buddy. And a Dutch person told me, and I've since researched it, that we walk our pace fits with our natural resting pulse rate. And if your walking buddy has a faster resting pulse than you, they will tend to walk faster than you. So you will get out of breath. And once that oxygen level mixes up, you're constantly playing catch up while they're strolling along perfectly well. And it is nothing to do with fitness. It's just where that natural rhythm sits for you. And the rest step is just, I do it. I can walk up a hill for 20 kilometers if I walk this rhythm and this rest step. So there's lots of YouTube videos about that. But I think it's a common misconception that couples or friends will set off on any kind of hike or physical adventure, and one of them will be able to do it and the other one will be playing catch up. And what I say to people is, don't even try. If somebody is faster than you, then let them walk on and you'll meet them in the bar or the cafe. And that's absolutely fine. And you might naturally fall into step with somebody who's walking your pace and you'll have a chat with them. Or you'll walk with somebody who's so fast, you're like struggling to talk to them. So you say, I think I'll let you go. And
that was me in Guatemala. And then I ended up having to get on a horse up the volcano because I just couldn't.
And that's the other thing. Just sometimes admit and say, do you know what? I need to stop. I need a pause, or this is too much for me. I need to tackle it another way. The whole thing of walking step in step with somebody else, I think, is one of the biggest problems people have when they go and do anything together. And I walk a different pace from my husband, and we've just learnt to deal with that. And I do take groups, or I have taken groups. And that is the biggest message that I give to people is, do not try to walk as a group. Just walk your walk that feels comfortable for you.
Yeah, I like that a lot because that's always my issue. Like I did a 2-hour hike in Japan in Kyoto and it was just me. And it was like really, really hot. I think it was like 30 Celsius if I had to take a guess, but it was like very humid. There was rain and it took me like 2 hours to do the whole thing, but it was just me. So I felt comfortable. I could go at my own pace and I felt fine. Like I wasn't like, I was obviously like hot and like red in the face because it was like humid and all, but I wasn't like out of breath. I didn't feel like I was going to be like winded over or anything like that. I stayed hydrated, but it's because I could go at my own pace. Whereas I feel like when I go hiking with someone else or in a group, I always feel like I don't want to be the last one and I need to keep up. And that's where I run into serious issues. So, like, I do think there's a lot of truth with what you're saying.
And it's where injuries are going to happen. It's very hard for somebody who walks quickly to slow down, and you're more likely to trip over your own feet, not walking your own natural pace. And if you're walking faster than you're used to, you might well get a hot spot or a blister, and that's going to cause you even more problems sort of down the line. And it's just more comfortable for everyone to just say, do you know what? I'm going to walk up this hill. I'll see you up there. And it keeps everyone happy, and nobody gets hurt or falls out. And it's best for everyone. And on the thing about, are you fit enough? You know, I was really overweight. So I'd had thyroid cancer. So before the cancer, I had ballooned in weight. And then I spent a couple of years on steroids and antibiotics. So I was chunky girl when I set off. Still am.
I am too. You're not alone. You're not alone.
But it didn't matter in that this whole thing about people just accept you for who you are. And if you're struggling, someone will help. But if most people decide they're going to walk several months ahead of walking, and so you can start off really slow with your fitness regime. And I set up a 12-week program. And part of that is when you're waiting for a kettle to boil, then dance, just keep moving. And I think the secret is to keep moving. And of the people I've walked with who are the fittest are the people who've had a dog all their life, who go out for an hour's walk every day. You do not need to be an athlete to walk the Camino. But you need a level of fitness and you need to be healthy, but it's not an elite sport,
And I love what you said too about knowing your limitations, right? And knowing when it's okay to rest and stop. I know when I go on a hiking adventure with my daughter, she's in her 20s. She lives a very active lifestyle. She goes to the gym like every day. She's a runner. I'm the complete opposite of that. So whenever we are hiking somewhere, I'll tell her like, Sam, like you go ahead. We'll meet up. If you don't see me like 30 minutes after you got to a certain like peak, then maybe we worry about me and turn back and go find me.
And,
but eventually we'll find each other.
Now, don't we? WhatsApp.
Exactly. So normally I let her go ahead and then we'll meet up at the viewing point. We'll have like our nice little snack and then same thing. We'll make our way leisurely back down to the parking or whatever the case may be. But there's no shame in knowing your limitations because like you said, that's when accidents can happen and you can get injured because I'm always afraid of like pushing myself too much to the point that I might like faint or I might fall, like, so there's no
Twist
shame
your
in doing
ankle.
that.
Yeah, twist an ankle will put you out for weeks, or pull a tendon, or just a silly trip can have massive consequences. And you don't want to be thinking that the thing that consumes you when you're outdoors on the Camino or anywhere should not be my pace. It should be the trail or the view or how you're feeling or your thoughts, but it shouldn't be, oh my goodness, I can't keep up. Or
Yeah, go at your own pace. Like I said, it's so important because like I said before, I know when I hike with people and feel the need to keep up, it's never been fun. Whereas those like solo hikes are just so much better for me. So just to pivot a little bit to price, because I joke a lot on this podcast about how I love to just like spend a ton of money on travel and how like my credit card loves me and all that stuff. So how is the price point for the Camino? Is it expensive? Is it not expensive? And what kind of like budget should first time pilgrims expect?
again, just like there is a Camino for everyone, and it sounds like a vague answer, but there is a price point for everyone. So if you want to stay in a comfortable hotel every night and have breakfast and your own private room, certainly around the €100 marks, you're going to get that. A nice, a nice comfortable hotel, for sure. If you're on a budget and you're like, no, I'm happy to stay in bunk beds, or even if budget isn't your concern and that's the walk you want, you can get a bunk bed for between 10 and €15 a night. And so for that, you get your bed and access to the bathroom, sometimes clothes washing facilities and a kitchen and the camaraderie and everything that goes with those pilgrim services. So that's your bottom line, if you like. There is terrible misconception. There's a word called donativo in Spanish, which does mean donation. And there are albergues and hostels that have existed for 1,000 years, and they exist on donations. And throughout history, it has been give what you can. And if you can give more, then you're feeding somebody tomorrow and the day after. And that has become, I read it so often, you can get a free bed if you go to a donativo, and they're closing. And it's like our generation are going to destroy this system that's been there for 1,000 years.
That's so
It's
sad.
sad.
Very, very sad. And so I would say to anybody who's listening to this, if you hear about the donativo system, it is about generosity and giving, not taking. So give generously and let's keep them going, because they're run by volunteers and church associations and pilgrim associations. But that aside, if you want to think about breakfast, obviously a lot of hostel accommodation will have some kind of kitchen, which might just mean a microwave and a toaster and sometimes a kitchen. So you can go to a supermarket and buy bread or make a sandwich. If you want to pay for breakfast, I would allow minimum €5. The Parador hotels, which are really luxurious hotels, breakfast is going to be about 20 or €25. Economies of scale. Lunch and tapas, again, you can do for a few euros, or you can pay, where we live in France, and it's the same in Spain, you can get a 3-course meal for about €16 with bread and water. And that will keep you going, obviously. It's not going to be cordon bleu. You're not going to have rump steak, but you're going to have something that's going to be filling and will keep you going.
The bread over there is delicious, so I'm not complaining. In France, every time I've gone, there's always been times where I'm like, I'll have a lunch of bread, cheese, some fruit, and a little bit of wine. I'm like, that is like perfection. Heaven.
Except I'm celiac, so no bread.
Always overdo it on the bread when I'm over in France. It's just like, oh my God, it's so good.
It's like you just can't go wrong.
No.
No, and there are a lot of complaints from pilgrims about the food, and you just think you're paying so little, and they're trying to keep the price down so much that it's just going to keep you going. It's not going to be wholesome. It's not the best food that you'll ever taste in Spain, but it will keep you going until tomorrow and not break the bank.
It'll
And
keep
I
you
feel like it's all
walking.
like part of the journey too, right? That you're getting to kind of experience a little different side of Spain, a little bit more like authentic, also to connecting with like the locals throughout your journey, which sounds beautiful.
Yeah, and also when I was in albergues volunteering, a lot of pilgrims, some would bring pasta, some would have wine, some would have bread, and they'd pool their resources and all sit down and cook some kind, like a bit like Master Chef, you know, where an invention test. What can we cook tonight? Or somebody would cook something and there would be too much, and if somebody sat in the corner, they would say, "Oh, come and join us. We've got too much food." So can walk the Camino on a budget. Just it's not free, but it is definitely possible to budget. I would say a comfortable budget. If you're on the bottom end, allow 40 to 50 euros a day, and that will cover if you need the pharmacy, if you want to visit a church or a museum or have a drink during the day and have your bed. I think that's kind of a minimum that you should think of. And obviously, if there are two of you sharing a room, you can get a room for 50, 60, 70 euros, then that's not so expensive. Your room is half price.
And
Yeah.
also set like realistic expectations. I feel like I know when I went on this trip to Iceland, I already knew more or less what to expect. The tour company did a great job of providing us like photos and information on our accommodations, what we can expect for dining. And like you said, we're not having Michelin star dining, but it was still delicious. We got to bond, we got to talk. There were other groups staying at the same like cabin site, which was beautiful. And like you build these amazing connections. And I didn't go there for the food. I went there for the experience, but I already had those expectations. And I feel like sometimes for travelers, when I see negative reviews online, I'm like, but did you not research properly? Because you should have known, you should have expected X, Y, and
My
Z to
God,
a
those
certain
reviews are
extent,
so
at least.
funny. I'll read some of these reviews and I'll be like, what is it that you were like looking at? Because it's so
Exactly.
true. It's like you're not
Mhm.
going to have like caviar doing the Camino.
But you do get wine, and you get absolutely excellent wine.
Spain has
Spain
good
has
wine.
delicious.
Spain and France, the wine scene, I'm like so all about
I
that.
know. I
It's
love
so
their cava.
delicious. Don't get me started on cava.
Expectation thing is a really, really great point, though. And again, harping back to this, what makes a real pilgrim and is it a pilgrimage? Then sometimes just understanding if your expectations are too high, learning how you deal with that expectation and how you deal with those situations to lower your expectation or to lower what you expect of other people and how you deal with it is all part of that experience. And it can be, food often tastes better at the end of 25 kilometers when you haven't had to cook it yourself and it's just
It
there for
does.
you.
It's so
It definitely
true.
does.
I think back to like my very first solo trip in Scotland. We had a really super long day, and we all just decided, like those of us staying in the hostel, that we would just do a barbecue, pick up a couple things from the local grocery store, barbecue together. When I say it was one of the best meals I ever had because of like the community and because it was food at the end of the long day, it just hit different. It was such a good meal and it was very affordable. And I still remember it. Like, and that was back in 2013. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure. For sure. That is what is important. And the rest of it is just noise and how you cope with it.
Yeah,
yeah.
totally agree. Now, Colleen, I know you kind of touched on a couple of things when it comes to challenging parts physically, but from an emotional standpoint, how can walking the Camino de Santiago kind of transform someone's experience?
Yeah. Okay. I think that we focus a lot on the physical challenges and we can prepare for that. But I think, yeah, you have to prepare to get fit, but your feet don't know what it's like to walk 20 kilometers a day until they walk 20 kilometers a day. So there are physical challenges about injuries and blisters are the obvious one, but pains in your feet and shin splints and hiker's rash and all that kind of thing. There are physical problems day after day after day that occur. But emotionally, I think the thing that for most people is not having your own space, which sounds ridiculous because you're walking, but you are, unless you're on a quiet route where there are no people, you are with people at the beginning and the end of the day, and you lose all your choice and the autonomy at home. What time do I want to get up? When do I want breakfast? I'll have a cup of tea now. And all of those choices are removed from you. And that's hard for us in our modern life. We like to have control over our environment. And you're in a different bed every night, and you may not like all the people that surrounds you, and you will be homesick. Absolutely. I on my first hike, definitely after about 10 or 12 days, remember walking out sort of as the summer's coming out and just sobbing because I was so homesick. So my son was 12 when I did my first Camino, and it was the longest I've been away from home. And there's so many emotions about what you leave behind at home. And some of that is great because you leave behind things that, your expectations or how you deal with things, but you certainly miss family and friends and pets or things that are just really important to you. So I was a singer, and that was my job, and I really missed performing and the band and doing that kind of thing. It just pushes everything to the edge of your comfort zone and then some. And the longer you walk, I guess the more you learn how to deal with that. And I guess that is the transformation, even if it is just, I never thought I could stay in a bunk bed, and now I know I can stay in a hostel. Two, I never thought I could be away from home for so long and be so independent, and yet here I am doing this. I mean, there are a million mini successes that you have. And when you get to the end, and I used to say to people when they're walking over, long distances or mountains, look back and see how far you've come. I think that's very true when you go home and you think, am I the same person I was before I did that? And for me, the transformation, I think, was as a young woman or as a girl, had all these big dreams, and then you get married and you get a mortgage and career and life comes along, and suddenly you're 50 and you haven't done any of those things. And I walked and thought, I can do this. I can do other things. And why have I forgotten those dreams? Why am I not traveling? Why am I not doing the things that I thought I would be? And it gave me enough confidence to think I am more. I love being a mum. I love being a wife. I don't ever want to change that, but I'm also me. And for me, that was my transformation, this belief that I could be more than I was.
I love that. That gave me chills. And I feel like it's so important, especially for us as women. Like, I feel like, I teach like high school. I feel like I always like give a lot of myself. And then I have my responsibilities at home. And I feel like it's always giving, giving, giving. And it's true. Like, I had a lot of like big dreams, like for different, like, trips like in my 20s, and it's a good opportunity to reflect and be like, if I could do this, I could also do all of these other dreams. It's possible, and it's just like so refreshing and inspiring to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And I used to hold workshops in person in France, and I've put them online now. Little plug if anybody wants to watch them.
Hey, yay, we'll definitely link them in the show notes.
But I remember saying that at one of my workshops, and there were a couple of blokes, guys, men there, the same age, sort of 50s, 60s. And it was interesting how they sort of interjected when I said that as a wife and mother, you give up so much. And they were saying, no, it's the same for a man too. They have a different set of rules that they are expected to conform to. And walking the Camino frees them from this belief that big boys don't cry, and all of, you have to be the strongest one. You have to put up with, you have to do all the dirty jobs. You have to be what society says you are. And I never thought about it in that way before, but the transformation for men, and now I've got grown up sons, I actually think the pressure on men is huge these
For sure.
days, as well as women. I just actually the pressure we put on ourselves to be this perfect person in a perfect world, which doesn't exist, is so stressful for people. They just
Yeah.
need to come and walk a Camino.
Yeah, let's do it. I think we all need to walk a Camino now. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I think each of us need to go and walk a Camino. So I know that I'm like ready to go. So there's several different routes you can take, and there is a certain length of time that you can go. It looks different for everyone. So for a beginner like Rosa and I, what routes would you recommend for, us?
Okay, so there are so many different routes. And for people, if they're watching and think there's no way I can afford to go to Spain. So in America, there is a 25-kilometer pilgrimage route that has been approved by the Church in Santiago. In the UK, there are pilgrim routes. In Australia, I know that there is the Australian Camino and Friends of the Camino. So even if the idea of going to Spain is just beyond what you could do, you can still contact your local pilgrim association and be part of that community. But if you are a beginner, I guess the first question is time, because there is this snobbery about, oh, I did the whole 800. Aren't I good? But for some people, they only have 2 weeks. And I know for Americans, you've got to get from America, you've got 2 weeks holiday, and then you've got to get home again as well. And the people that walk the whole thing should be saying, aren't I lucky? I have this gift of 6 weeks. And stop being so judgmental about those that can't do that. So the great news is that the cathedral last year changed the rules. It used to be that you had to walk the last 100 kilometers into Santiago to get a Compostela. And for many people, that is really important. Whereas now you just have to walk 100 continuous kilometers along a Camino. So you don't have to walk the last. So if mountains are your thing, or beaches are your thing, or solitude is your thing, you can choose a route and just 100 kilometers of that route. And then the last stage, so you walk the last day into Santiago. And most people on average could manage 20 kilometers a day. So that's what, about 12 miles for you, I think?
Yeah, I could do that. I feel like I could do
Doable.
it. I think it's doable. I could do that.
Just think of the wine as the reward at the end of the night.
Exactly.
And all that bread to keep you going. So that means that 100 kilometers is 5 days, the last day into Santiago. So the minimum that you need to walk to get your Compostela is 5 or 6 days. So that means it's really doable for a lot of people. And obviously then the longer you have, the more you can add to your route. So time is the first thing that you need to decide. And then there's a route called the English Way, which is only 5 or 6 days long, because the English used to come in a boat. They'd land close to Santiago and just walk the last bit. So there is a route called the Ingles, which is the English Way. So you can do the whole thing from beginning to end in a week. If you really wanted to, and you like the idea of that, you can start it in Ireland or England and do a little bit of the Celtic Caminos and then go across to Spain and do that. The one that everybody thinks about when you talk about the Camino, and if you think about the film The Way, the one that they've seen is the Camino Frances, which goes from France over the Pyrenees and then the 800 kilometers across Spain. And that would take most people around 5 weeks to walk. But if time is limited, you can just choose a section of that and then just jump ahead and do the last stage into Santiago. So you can pick along that route. The reason why most people choose that to start with is it has so many services. There's accommodation to fit every budget, and there are little shops and bars and cafes, and you can walk 10 kilometers a day and still find a bed. It is very, very well serviced. So as a beginner, Camino is perfect for that reason. It's also beautiful. So much changing scenery. There are some amazing cities. There's incredible history along that route, from the Celts to Neolithic and Paleolithic and Romans and Templars. And it's an amazing Camino for that reason. Recently, really popular has become the route from Porto to Santiago. And there are 2 routes in Portugal, so you can do the interior or along the coast. That is almost as popular as the Frances now. It is beautiful. I've just finished it a couple of weeks ago. You get to walk in 2 countries. There are all kinds of variants that you can do. The one thing I would say about walking along any of the coastal Caminos is that it can feel a little bit like a coastal walk, and not necessarily a pilgrimage. And for some people that is important, although the closer you get into Spain and go inland, that changes, but that is something that people often say. It doesn't feel like I thought it would feel. There's routes over mountains, the Primitivo, which means the first, that goes from a place called Oviedo. It's 2 weeks, lots of mountainous terrain, but very, very beautiful. I've walked 1,000 kilometers from southern Spain up on a route called the Via de la Plata, which follows Roman roads and ancient herding routes. And yeah, there are routes in France, across Europe. So for a beginner, I would say, what is it that you want? Because somebody might only do it once. They might want solitude. They might want history. They might want the camaraderie, the ease. But whatever level you are at, there is a Camino that would suit you.
I love hearing that, especially for myself. I work a corporate job. So typically, if I am traveling to a destination, I'm kind of limited with my time. Like the most that I can do would probably be like 2 weeks of PTO. But like you said, coming from the States, we're very fortunate that we do have direct flights out of like Newark and JFK into most places within Spain. But you still kind of have to factor in because going there, you're pretty much losing a day. Coming back, you're going to probably feel jet lag. So you do have to kind of factor all those things in. So I love hearing that it's possible to do it. Like, let's say if I wanted to travel for 2 weeks, spend 1 week of that walking the Camino, and maybe the other week exploring other parts of Spain. So I know, Colleen, you've been exploring Spain for decades now. So what would you say are some underrated places that travelers should visit beyond the beaches and the resorts?
And then most people will fly in to places like Barcelona. And that's one thing about going on the Camino is often people don't fly into the most obvious place that's easiest for them. So be creative and look at some of the tools that are available to find the right flight to get to your start, because otherwise it can get very, very complicated. So yeah, people go to Spain and they'll talk about the costas and the beaches along the Mediterranean, and most people will go to Barcelona, and they're all great places to visit. But if you go half an hour inland from those coasts, you'll find a very, very different Spain. And obviously, Andalusia was the first place I went to in southern Spain, down on the Mediterranean. But you have Granada, which the Alhambra is so, so beautiful.
I love it. I went over my spring break and it is still one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It made me cry.
It is stunning, and the age of it and the history that is associated with it. And then very close to Granada, you have Cordoba and Jaén, which kind of this triangle of Moorish fabulous cities. And then if you go a little bit further, you have Seville, which is like Seville.
That's like on my bucket list. It's funny because we have 2 weeks off in September. So I'm personally curious to soak in all your recommendations because I wanted to go to Italy, but I was fortunate enough to go this past April. So my husband, we've been to Spain a few times, but usually we've only gone to like Barcelona. And he's like, let's just go back to Spain and explore other regions. So I am taking notes because I feel like Spain's going to be it for us this
I
year.
love Spain. You'll love it. It's amazing. Cannot say enough good things about Spain.
The best thing about if you're looking for something different to do, apart from that little corner of Andalusia with all of its amazing history, is hire a car because driving is so easy and the roads are so quiet. And I walked a route called the Via de la Plata, which started in Seville. Definitely worth spending some time in Seville. And then the next major city it goes to is a place called Merida. Well, actually, no, I'll go back. A day out of Seville, or half a day out of Seville, walking is a place called Santa Ponsa. And there are Roman ruins in Santa Ponsa because it was once the capital of the Iberian Roman Peninsula. And it was where like Hadrian of Hadrian's War was born. And so there's still an amphitheater and ruins there. And then you go on along the road, and about 5 or 6 days into the walk, you can come to places like Jafra and Merida and Zafra. Merida has so many Roman ruins. You walk down the street, and then beside the Roman ruins, there are Moorish and Arabic ruins, and nobody ever goes there. And you keep going to Salamanca, which, such a beautiful city.
I need to go. I'm just thinking I need to spend a month in Spain, just like wandering around. And we're very fortunate too. Like Rosa said, like we have United has started direct flights to Santiago, like
Yeah,
right
I
from
think it
Newark right
starts
to
in
Santiago.
September.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a new route, and then there's a flight too that flies to the north of Spain to what is it, Bilbao?
I'll
Bilbao? Yeah, direct
I
flight
never got a
seasonally.
chance to
Yeah.
visit. The whole of that bit of coast is absolutely beautiful coastline, really natural and raw, and so much history along that coast as well.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I'm like already planning it in my
Mentally
head.
there. I am mentally
Yeah, I'm
there eating my
mentally
tapa.
there. I know. And like with me being a teacher, like I can take like the time off in the summer, but it's nice that there's so much to do in northern Spain too, where it's not quite as hot and I can like experience a great Camino without sweating into a pile of goo.
If you don't worry about seeing crowds of people, if you're quite happy for some lone hiking, there is a tiny Camino from northern Spain, which we did it in July, and it goes to a monastery that is said to hold a piece of the real cross. And it was a pilgrimage route in its own right in the 6th century, and it's about a week long. So you can go to northern Spain to a place called, and now I've forgotten the name, it will come to me in a moment, but anyway, it's the Lebaniajo is the Camino, and you walk from northern Spain inland into the Picos de Europa, and you reach this monastery and the town where just beyond is called Potes, or Pot, Potes it's called, but that's a tiny little Camino. It's just absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scenery, and there are simple hotels and accommodation, and we walked a couple of days beyond it as well into the Picos, and there's a route over the mountain called Fuente Day, possibly the greatest hiking day we have ever had. And in July there were a million wildflowers, and the only route it would compare with to me would be the Skyline Trail around Rainier. Those two are my two greatest hiking days.
Oh my God, it
Gosh, I'm
sounds
ready.
amazing.
Oh
I know.
my
I
God.
was like, after we wrap up, I'm booking this flight.
I
Like, you
know.
have me convinced,
I
Colleen.
know. I'm like ready to be like, you know what? Every summer, I'm just gonna like block it off with flights and flights and more flights.
And do
It's
like different trails of the Camino, so have little
yeah.
different
All
experiences
so
each
different.
time.
And if you want a driving trip and you don't want to walk, follow some of these quiet caminos. You know, the one from Valencia, or a little bit further down, it goes up through what they call the Levant, and you've got all of the sort of El Cid country with castles, and Don Quixote country with, the plains and the history that was associated with that. There's just so much history. And it's so easy. And if you want a touch of luxury, look for Parador hotels, which seem luxurious to us because they're about 140 euros a night. But I know to some Americans that is not hugely expensive.
Yeah, compared to New York City prices, I feel like
Don't
sometimes
get me
like we're
started.
like
Oh my gosh.
oblivious to what's really expensive and what's
Yeah, we're
not.
like an hour from New York City, so I always like compare everything to New York City prices, and it's ridiculous.
We had to stay 4 nights in Yellowstone National Park, and we nearly choked on the prices.
Yeah,
I've
yeah, we
never
have
been.
no concept of pricing around here.
Yeah, it's so true. And like with Yellowstone, it's funny you mentioned that because my mom and I were looking at that as like a possibility. And she's like, Rachel, like aside from the flights, it's just so much more affordable to go to Europe. And I'd rather go to Europe because we love Europe. So she's like, can we just go
Yeah.
to Europe? And I'm like, we can always go to Europe.
And
Yeah,
yet, I mean,
Europe.
Yellowstone was amazing and of no regrets. But yeah, if you compare the two, you think, okay, we can pay this. We can pay this. It's okay.
Just put it all into perspective.
To quote my friends, just put it on the Klarna.
There you
Just
go.
do it. Just do it. Just do it. And don't think about it. Just do it.
Yeah.
That's what we always say. Just go ahead and just book the flight. You'll worry about the money aspect later.
That's how I feel. It'll come back.
Exactly. So,
I-
Colleen, as you can tell, Rachel and I, we're always ready for an amazing adventure. But maybe for some of our listeners who might still be a little bit nervous about walking the Camino, what advice would you give them to finally take that first step?
Okay, I think if you particularly if you have your local Friends of the Camino association and they are all over the world in your own language. You know, obviously there's Canadians and Irish and British and American friends of the Camino. So if you are nervous about starting, that would help you team up with a few people who can maybe alleviate some of those nerves. And there are some good Facebook groups. I've got one, but there are also some where I feel the judgment can be a little bit harsh, and that can put people off. So, you know, people will go on and say, I can't carry a pack. Can you recommend how I can have a bag? And be, oh, carry it yourself. You'll be, and it's just like, just answer the question without the judgment.
Facebook is so bad for that.
Exactly.
I'm
Like,
just
leave
like,
the trolling behind, people.
it's like, go outside.
Exactly. We don't know. You know, one of the ladies that walked with me once made a really valid point that I hadn't ever thought about. So she was 71 and she walked for 10 days with me. She said, I want my bag forwarded because I'm never going to do this again. It's a one-off. I have spent a lot of money on super lightweight hiking gear. She said, I can't afford to do the trip and buy a whole load of hiking gear and rucksack and everything that goes with it. So if I have a bag forwarded for my €7 or €8 a day, I'm only spending €70. Whereas if I have to buy a complete kit and rucksack and everything that goes with it, I'm going to spend hundreds. He said, I can't afford it. And I thought, that is such a good point. Why are we judging people when it just might be they can't afford to buy the gear? I would just say, if you're nervous, try and not listen to the purists. I don't know if you remember or know, like Monty Python, it's a very British thing. Monty Python did a sketch. It was probably when I was young, so before you were born. But they had this sketch where they were on the stage in true Monty Python fashion, and they were like, "When I was a child, we lived in a cardboard box and had no electricity." You know, and then somebody said, "Well, when I was a child, we lived in a matchbox," and you know, it was like. And I think sometimes online, oh, I did it in 1990 when it was a real experience, or you have to have this gear because you won't be. For a nervous beginner, that's enough for them to think, oh, I can't do this. And so the point I guess I'm trying to make is that don't listen to those voices. Find a group that speaks, that's your tribe and that speaks to you, and try and block out the rest of the noise, because I truly believe that if somebody wants to do it, they will get something from it. And you don't have to, your concern should not be the bag or the bed that you have, but what you are going to get from making that walk. So if you're a nervous first timer, start walking and find your tribe and try and block out the rest of the noise.
Love that. And for our listeners too, like, don't be that person. Like you said, everyone's priority is a little bit different. I hate whenever I post something on social media asking for like specific advice on something. And like you said, they'll come back with like the most ignorant comment. And I'm like, one, you're not being helpful. Two, you're being judgmental when you don't even know my situation. Like for myself, like I said during the episode, like sometimes I have difficulty walking for a long period of time because I have a leg injury. So like if I'm trying to do something to make my experience more enjoyable, why shouldn't I? And if you don't have any feedback to give, then don't give any feedback at all.
I agree.
My mum used to say, if you haven't got anything good to say, then don't say anything at all.
Yeah, it's a quote for
Agreed.
the ages. It's so true. Like, I agree with
What's that?
Rosa.
Do you not think that the braver people get behind their keyboard, the less tolerant they become in real life because it become acceptable? And so we just have to try and not engage and walk away from it. It's like a toddler having a tantrum. Just let them do their thing over there, and we're going to do our thing over
Yeah.
here.
I'm the same way. Now I'm at the point where I just like don't even respond, especially like on a platform like Threads where it like can come from like the whole world. I just like block things. Like I just don't even like answer. I just immediately block because it's true. It's like disheartening and everybody's different. Like what works for you may not work for someone else and that's okay. Like it doesn't if it doesn't like impact you personally, like who cares? Like why are you making these ignorant comments?
Yeah.
I swear, like the internet's a good thing in the sense that we can share information, but sometimes I'm like, I wouldn't mind getting rid of my laptop and moving to a cabin in the woods with my books and like getting a couple like dogs and cats.
I think so many people say that, and we think this is meant to be enhancing our life, and it does. And this will age me because I moved from London back to Devon in the UK, where I was born, because there was this new thing called the internet. And then I worked in IT, and I got a new job working with rolling out the internet to the fire service. And it didn't exist in the 1990s. We did not have smartphones. We did not have this. And it's happened so quickly that I don't think we've evolved to deal with all of the negative feelings that can come from it. And it's such a powerful, powerful tool. We think we need to make it a tool for good and do our bit to not make people feel as though they're not good enough. We need to make them feel like they are good enough.
And that's such a good point, too. I know another thing which we kind of didn't really touch on in this episode, but I know for myself, when we did this trip to Iceland, like I was also prepared that we were not going to have access to like the internet for a couple of days, that we were going to be disconnected. And it felt so freeing to know I didn't have to worry about social media. I didn't have to worry about anything. And I remember telling my husband, like, listen, like we'll try to check in as best as possible whenever we're back at the hut, but we are going to have very like limited Wi-Fi. And sure enough, like we would just check back home just to let him know we were back for the day. But it was so liberating not to worry or have to focus on checking emails or anything to do with the internet world.
Exactly. You forget what day it is. That is such a freeing thing. And the other thing about phones that I really hate online, people say, oh, yeah, they're on their phones. I take my phone everywhere, but it's my camera and my book and a map and so many other things. But I'm in flight mode. But there's this assumption that if you've got a smartphone, that you're on Facebook, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And could not travel without my phone, but I don't need to be connected for it to be a useful tool. And I don't understand the hatred towards the technology. And I wouldn't have started my blog if it had not have been for this idea. I don't want to be connected to any of you. So don't keep all emailing me and going on social media. I'm going to write it all in one blog and you can go and read there what I'm up
It's so
to.
funny.
And that was a
I
really
love
cool
I
blog.
feel like this is like an episode on its own.
So funny, and it's so true. So, Rosa, what do we think? Rapid fire question time, Camino style?
Let's do it. Are you ready, Colleen?
Okay. I'm not very good at
Alrighty.
quick answers.
So you're in the hot seat. Would you rather walk the Camino in the pouring rain for a week or in a heat wave for a week?
Pouring rain. Irish ancestry. I would fry in the heat. And also I sweat a lot and go bright red. It's not attractive.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
That rosacea really gets like fired up in the heat. Like I would rather do a Camino in the summer in the UK and deal with the rain than one further south where it's like 40 degrees Celsius. I just don't think I could do it.
It is really, really hard walking in the heat. And it's not healthy for you either.
No.
It's really, really not healthy.
All right. So would you rather give up coffee for the entire Camino or carry an extra 10 pounds in your backpack?
I would never carry an extra 10 pounds in my backpack. So whatever it takes. My bag has to be 5 kilos complete when I leave home when I'm walking. So never, never more weight. Never.
I know Rachel's a coffee lover, so I don't know. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Although carrying that bag, yeah. Carrying that bag would be a lot.
You might start off with your coffee on your back. And then after 2 days, when you're like, oh my God, I can't lift this bag anymore, you would be going through, taking out the coffee, taking out the extra pairs of socks and t-shirts and everything. Think, yeah, okay, that's fine now.
Like, I feel better.
That's true.
Now, this is a tough one. Would you rather finish a Camino day with an amazing tapas dinner or the best night's sleep of your life?
Okay, sleep is kind of overrated sometimes.
It's my motto sometimes.
I always say I'll catch up on sleep when I'm back in New Jersey.
Exactly. And there's no guarantee you're going to sleep well if you've got a snorer next to you. But tapas is really difficult when you're gluten-free. but I'd find something. And usually wine comes with tapas. So I'd go with the tapas crowd anyway.
Oof, yeah. Just the thought of the patatas bravas or like
Girl.
some chorizo.
Oh.
Yeah.
One of our previous guests, Amy, she did the episode on Portugal. We went to Barcelona together and we would always say patatas bravas doesn't count towards calories. And we had them with every meal, every single one.
Delicious.
Some places wrap them in flour, so you can't have them. It's probably just as well.
Yeah. So before we wrap up the episode, Colleen, where can our listeners find you if they're interested in doing a Camino of their own?
Well, my website is called Then We Walked. So that is probably the best starting point. And I do have a private Facebook community to try and not have bad comments or spam. Be warned, if people make bad comments, they get deleted.
I love that. Good for you. I'm going to totally
I'll be
join.
joining.
I'm joining too. Like, seriously, that would be great to be able to ask a question and not have my head ripped off. Yes, please.
No, not having that. Not in my group, and also on Instagram, but most probably my Facebook page on my website is probably the best place to start. And I have written daily stage guides for every day on the Français, the Inglés, and the Portuguese. So if somebody wants to, you can read about the whole journey and the accommodation and terrain and what to expect. There are
That's
hundreds of
perfect.
posts there.
That is perfect. I know I'm definitely checking out your website because this episode sold me. I definitely need to do a Camino of my own. I absolutely loved it. And that's a wrap, guys, on today's episode of Bon Voyage Besties. So a huge thank you to Colleen for sharing her incredible journey, wisdom, and inspiration with us. From walking the Camino de Santiago after cancer treatment to exploring the hidden corners of Spain, her story is such a beautiful reminder that adventure can begin at any stage of life, one step at a time. So we really hope that today's conversation helped answer some of your questions about the Camino and maybe even inspired you to do your own journey. I know it has for me. So whether you're planning your first walk or simply looking for a little motivation to try something different, we really hope that this episode leaves you feeling encouraged and empowered to do a Camino of your own. So don't forget to check out Colleen's blog, Then We Walked, for even more Camino tips, stories, and advice. And as always, if you love this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave us a review. It really does help us out with the algorithms that all these platforms use nowadays. And we'll be back soon with more travel stories and laughs and tips for you all. So until next time, keep exploring, book the ticket. The money will come back, as I always say. And we'll see you in the next ones, besties. Bon voyage.
Bon voyage. Thank you so much, Colleen.
Bye-bye.
Yes, we'll see you at the Camino.
Yes.
Bye, besties.